Okay, so to summarize all this, okay, so I know this has been very complicated, and I know we're here citing Florida statutes, but basically just to summarize, okay, I don't personally have any commitment. I don't care whether Wendy is prosecuted as an accessory, as aiding and abetting. I don't care if she's found to be a conspirator. I don't care if Wendy's found to be directly a murderer. I don't have any personal investment in this. Um, I like to remain neutral. I look at this more as just a very unfortunate tragedy where I think the Adelson family, I think they have their own like psychological issues. I think it's more way past narcissism. I think it's way past psychopathy. I think the real core problem with the Adelsons, in my opinion, I think that this is a very self-destructive family. I think this family has the veneer. They like to hold the false appearance of being very successful and very put together and very elite, superior people. But I think deep down inside, I'm concerned that between Donna and Harvey and Charlie and Wendy, I'm concerned that these people don't carry kind of a underlying, very self-destructive something. I don't know what it is, but there's something very self-destructive, very foolish about this family. Okay, because when they got all outraged at this custody battle with Dan. Okay, even though Danny could have, I think he could have been less abrasive and less. I don't know. There's something very rigid about Danny, and I'm sorry if you guys disagree. Okay, I know he loved his children. I know he was doing everything, but there was something about the way he litigated. I litigate for a living. I do this professionally. All right, and if you read his motions and you look at the intensity of his arguments, there is something kind of abrasive and I think kind of provocative about the way he's litigating. I'm sorry, it just comes across. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But here's the thing: regardless of that, once the Adelsons became so enraged and so absorbed in trying to win this custody battle, okay, I think it brought out something in the Adelsons that to me is abnormal. Okay, abnormal. Not just the fact that they had reduced empathy and they could potentially harm somebody. It's not just that. I think something tells me, it's just intuitive. Something tells me that there's something in the Adelson family that is deeply self-loathing or self-destructive or neglectful. At the very least, they're very neglectful people. Okay, because given all the intelligence, Donna, she's a very intelligent person. Charlie, he doesn't come across always that smart, but he is an intelligent person. And Wendy is clearly a pretty intelligent person. So I don't think intelligent people, just neutrally, just I don't know, intelligent people that just I don't know, who are thinking clearly. People who are thinking clearly, who have normal self-esteem and normal self-interest. Okay, I don't think they're going to set up a master plan to kill anybody where it can easily be traced that the supervisor of the plan is actually known to be the girlfriend of the one of the people who's directing the plan. You know what I mean? Like how what I mean? Like I think it is just almost an embarrassing mistake. It's an embarrassing blunder that Charlie thought that somehow he was putting enough distance, that he was using the right code language, that he was decentralizing the plan to kill Danny, but that somehow it wouldn't stand out like a sore thumb that the person who was actually orchestrating the killing happened to be someone who was known to be his girlfriend at the time. I just think to me it just shows. I guess the main thing that comes out of this, it just shows to me that I think the Adelsons were in a self-destructive mode. Okay, and in that sense, I'm reminded of the Chris Watts case in Colorado, because I think you could argue that Chris Watts was trying to get rid of people that were trouble to him. But if you really think about it, what Chris Watts was doing is he was just destroying the whole family, including himself. Okay, I don't know how else to analyze it. Any fantasy that Chris Watts had that he would actually get away with what he did. Okay. I don't know. I think the stronger interpretation, I think, is that Chris Watts was just destroying the whole family, including himself. And in fact, I think that also applies to the Lacey Peterson, the Lacey Peterson murder in Modesto, California, way back in 2003 or whatever it was. You could say that that Scott Peterson, you could try to argue that he was trying to get rid of his family so he could start a new life. But I think in reality, I think there was something in Scott Peterson who was out to destroy the whole family, including himself. So it's kind of like these weird like family elimination, like this yeah, it's almost like a family elimination scenario. And I don't know how this got started. I don't know if Donna is the main eliminator or if it's Charlie, but when I look at least Charlie, it's very clear that his life pattern is one of self-destruction, of self-neglect. He doesn't take care of himself. He doesn't treat himself well. He doesn't keep himself. He doesn't operate in a safe way, in a way where he shows value for his own life. And so I just have to wonder if maybe deep down underneath all the high class veneer, maybe Donna herself had kind of this not treating herself very well deep down inside, below the veneer, below their appearances, And maybe when you look at Wendi, when you look at Jeff Lacoste, and he describes Wendi as being like a nervous wreck, that when you first get to know her, he said like the first 100 hours, she seems like she's a superior, perfect person. But then as you get to know her better, she's just a psychological wreck, So maybe all of these family members deep down inside, they're harboring a lot of chaos, a lot of just jumbled feelings, and maybe just essentially an inability to really care for themselves, even though they hold out the appearance of being like really high class people. I don't know, I'll never get to the bottom of it, but I just can't get over the fact of how stupid and how foolish some of the aspects of this planning were, even though Charlie seems to have thought that he was being very clever by creating this decentralized constellation, sort of this decentralized killing plan, whatever. I think that there are just too many aspects of it that just stick out like a sore thumb. And I think the most important thing is that they didn't really think carefully. How often does a law professor get killed by a hitman? Okay, that by itself is so rare. Okay, and so, just looking at probabilities, to get to like a reasonable doubt, you have to be like, say, in the 95% range of certainty. Okay. But once you get into like the 98, 99, 99.5% certainty, you're way past reasonable doubt. Okay. And so just thinking that, hitmen kill law professors like almost never. Okay. So when you multiply all the thousands of law professors out there, when you finally get to a murder where it's pretty clear a law professor has been killed by a hitman, which is very rare, it's like 1 in thousands, or worse, and then it just happens to be, he just happens to be connected to a family that has joked about using a hitman to kill him. I mean, just right there, you're already beyond reasonable doubt that at least they have something to do with it, right? I mean, it's almost a joke. It's embarrassing. So, I am not in any way pro Adelson, or in any way, I'm not even flirting with the idea that any Adelsons are not guilty of murder in some way. Okay, but I'm just saying that when you're designing a litigation strategy, right? You need to have all the possibilities on the table, and you need to honestly examine the strengths and the weaknesses of the microscopic evidence, and there are gaps in the evidence. Okay, we just don't have a way. There is no technological way to retrieve the audio, okay, of all the telephone conversations between Donna and Charlie and Wendi in the weeks and months and days and hours before the 18th of July. That's just a gap in the evidence, and so the evidence by itself is going to have some strengths, some weaknesses. There are some amazing advantages to the state. Like, how lucky is it that Wendi herself was so foolish that she had this super intimate relationship with Jeff Lacoste, who was a very intelligent, very credible witness. And she ended up dropping all this terrible inculpatory, she just basically just dropped all this evidence on him, and he's a very good mouthpiece to present that evidence. So, Wendi shot herself in the foot so many times, it's almost a joke, And so we have Jeff Lacoste, and between Jeff Lacoste and that other guy that was, I can't remember his name, the guy who was in jail with Sigfrido and had some extra information about how Donna might be connected, and just all these little pieces. I mean, there are a lot of really great pieces of circumstantial evidence, but we still have to be honest that there are some unfortunate gaps in the evidence, and so it does appear clear through all the evidence that there was a very conscious attempt to decentralize the actual how would you say, the organization of the killing, so that each person in the killing, no one person would actually know everything, right? So as you get closer to the center, it's not so much of a problem, but as you get to the people that are more out from the center, okay, I think there is an issue of whether it would be better to use an accessory theory or whether it would be better to try to include them in the direct conspiracy. And of course, now I'm just thinking out loud. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not even saying I would finally commit to that theory. I'm just saying, as you approach analyzing a case, you want to leave everything on the table and you want to be honest about the strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so in the end, I'm not even trying to predict how the state will actually prosecute this, because the state's going to analyze this better than I will. Okay, and there may be other evidence that we just don't know about, right? And I think also, let's just be honest, there is enough circumstantial evidence that you could bring charges against Wendi as an actual conspirator, I think. Okay, I just think that you also have to consider, just having it on the table, the alternative that she could also be prosecuted as an accessory, because it might be just maybe a little more of a slam dunk, let's say, a little tighter of a case. And you just don't want to have a repeat of things like the Casey Anthony, where she's guilty of something, but the state just had in that case, just a way too the state had a way too severe theory of actually what Casey did. And so, I'm not saying that actually applies to Wendi. I mean, each case is different, but you want to try to learn from the past, and you always want to at least have on the table the alternatives. Okay, that maybe there's a better fitting shoe for that foot. Every foot has a shoe that fits, and I think there are ways, obvious ways that Wendi could be found guilty of murder, but maybe through something other than a conspiracy, maybe through an accessory theory. But I'm not saying that is actually the final. That may not even be my final opinion. I might, if I had a chance to look over the evidence carefully, I might actually agree. Maybe it is better just to go ahead and include her as an actual conspirator. So anyway, just a nice summary. And I think if we can take anything away from this, I just want to say that leaving aside all the legalities. Okay, I think morally, the whole Adelson family is responsible. I believe it's just my opinion. The whole Adelson family is responsible for Danny Markel's murder. I believe that. Okay. And, what else do we have to say about this? And I think that, if we can learn anything from this, I think that when we get very upset in life, okay, when we allow ourselves to get into a lot of chaos, okay, that can sometimes bring out a very self-destructive pattern in people, because I don't know if deep down inside people want to destroy themselves. I'll never understand that. But when we live in a lot of chaos, okay, we are inevitably going to be more neglectful. We're going to be more neglectful in the way we actually carry ourselves and handle our lives and even care about other people. Okay, and it's just going to make us more impaired. Okay, it's almost like a state of non-sobriety. You know what I mean? So I really think if we can learn anything from this, I think we can learn that when you live in a lot of drama and chaos, okay, it's almost like you lose a certain level of sobriety in life, and it's sort of like akin to being impaired, even though you're not using necessarily substances. And so if we can just learn anything from this, maybe it's better sometimes to bite the bullet and to live a more boring life. Maybe just to live more frustrations, maybe not escalate so much, and maybe just tolerate more irritation in life. Maybe you don't have the best spouse or the best marriage or the best job, but maybe sometimes it's better just to tolerate just the normal discomforts of life and not let yourself get into a chaos where you get emotionally dysregulated. And then in just the chaos of fighting and just being in a bunch of drama, I think maybe all of us maybe can lose maybe a little more sobriety than what we think. So I guess my whole intent in making these videos is that this is a tragedy, right? Danny Markel was killed. He should not have been killed, right? And so instead of this just being a net negative, okay, where just he dies and people go to jail, it's just all negative, we can actually turn it into some kind of positive where all of us in some way can relate in some way to what happened to the Adelsons, to what happened to Danny, and all of us can at least learn something for our lives so that it doesn't have to just be a net negative. Okay. I don't want to see a situation where, somebody is dead and then everybody else is in jail. That's just all negatives. Negatives don't make positives. So, hopefully as we look at this case, we don't just look at it as entertainment, and we don't just have the satisfaction of seeing people go to jail, but we also have something positive, which is that we can learn from what has happened to other people. So it doesn't have to be a total negative, and that's just, I'm sure I'm not eloquent as I say this, but, just to try to take as much positive out of this as possible, And the other thing too, something positive is just the sobriety of understanding that just because you're angry at someone and they're guilty of something, as a prosecutor, you still have to be disciplined, okay, in tailoring your actual prosecution theory to what the actual strengths and weaknesses of the evidence actually present. It's just a good lesson in life. We don't want to have our fingers on the scale just because we want something or we think something. We think somebody's guilty, or we just or we're just angry at somebody for what they did. So anyway. But in the end, I mean, even trying to be neutral, trying to be impartial, I do think Wendi Adelson is responsible. I do think that. It's my opinion. But, if you're a responsible prosecutor, you will actually bring that prosecution in a responsible and accurate manner, okay, so that the jury really can believe in it, And all I'm saying is that because Wendy's a little further out in this decentralized murder plan, because she's a little more at the fringes, okay, I think there may be just a little more difficulty in getting a jury to believe that she was actually in on the central conspiracy. It's just my way of looking at it. It's just my way of having a sloppy, rough draft, so to speak. But in the end, if we can find a way to get her, into a conspiracy, if we can get her under a conspiracy theory, if you can develop a way of delivering the evidence so that the jury is convinced, that's fine. I mean, I don't have any personal interest in how she gets prosecuted, but I do think that a prosecutor should be able to get her convicted of something. So, anyway, sorry if I'm wordy. I'm sometimes when I really struggle, I sometimes take a long time to explain myself, and sometimes I don't explain myself very, very effectively. So, I'm just doing the best I can. But, the point of this, I'm not trying to hit a home run. I'm not trying to have some major opinion. This is just conversation. I'm just trying to be part of a conversation. And I think because I personally believe that in all these true crime cases, I think there's a lot that we can personally learn from these cases. So it's not just entertainment. That's kind of like my main interest. But anyway, appreciate your patience. And yeah, thanks for watching.